I have no idea what it was that I saw, but I don't want to see it again. Welcome to the Sonic Boomers podcast. This is program number 124, which we are calling Terror in the Night. Ooh. And look who's back.
Yay me.
Yay Maureen.
Did you miss me?
I'm sure they did.
I'm sure they did too.
So explain yourself. Where were you? Because I made excuses for you on the two previous shows, but where were you?
He was very gracious and he was speaking the truth. I was spending a lot of time creating playlists for our YouTube channel. Now, why I did that? Because, as you know, the Sonic Boomers topics cover a huge gamut, from funny to serious to information to religion. We talk about everything. And it occurred to me that perhaps some of you are not interested in every single thing that we have to
I can't
offer.
imagine that. I can't imagine that.
Well, there are one or two of you.
Everything that we do is a nugget.
It's golden, right? But at any rate, if you find certain things that we do more interesting to you, this allows you to go in and immediately zoom in on the particular episodes that cover that topic. For instance, if you liked when we're acting silly, there's a comedy playlist. If you liked to find out about our religion and our spirituality journey, there's a playlist for that. We also have playlists about holidays, about our travel, all kinds of things. So I suggest and I invite you to check out the fruits of my labor and try some of our playlists on our YouTube channel. Now, our audio versions are still the same as always, but the YouTube channels have now been sectioned into playlists for you. Also, this past week, we had an anniversary go by, December 8th of 2019. So 4 years ago was the very first edition of the Sonic Boomers podcast that we did. Actually, the name of the show back then was Mixing It Up with Pete and Maureen.
And we had that name for a while.
I think about a year and a half.
Yeah, and then we decided to rebrand the show, and we came up with the Sonic Boomers podcast. But what I'm going to be doing, probably as soon as we're done taping this show, is I'm going to pull out the audio from that show. Because unfortunately, this is before you and I started doing YouTube.
Exactly.
So it's just like a radio show. But we're going to put it up on the YouTube. So you can actually listen to that very first show and see how it changed over the last 4 years.
Hopefully for the better.
I was listening to it the other night again, and I think that we both sounded slightly tentative going into it.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And you can see what a slick professional operation we have here.
We're real pros here. Pete makes us look good. You should see how much he edits out before it goes live.
The last one I did, because I did the 2 episodes on cleaning and cleaning products, and number 123, which was part 2 of that series, I actually recorded at like 11 o'clock at night.
Because Pete's obsessive that way.
And I don't want to say that recording at 11 o'clock at night wasn't a good idea, but I made so damn many mistakes that the show didn't wrap up taping until 1:15 in the morning. And the more tired I was getting, the more I was like slurring things and losing my train of thought. So there's like edit all over the show. But if you want to go back to the show, it's right here on YouTube. We're all about my love, my passion for cleaning the house.
122 and 123. So what scared the heck out of you?
You know,
we're
talking about night terrors here. And when you hear night terror, if you had young children or if you have them now, you are familiar with the night terror.
Right. That's what I had always heard about it as those unexplainable times when your kid gets up in the middle of the night and
being
screams.
The operative phrase, because
right.
we're going to quote some stats here about the prevalence of night terrors. And it's like 2% of adults have a night terror. And why don't you explain, tell the story from your end from what you experienced, because I was in the back in the bedroom sleeping,
right.
and you were in the living room here watching TV or a movie or something.
Right.
Okay, so pick up the story from there.
It was a late night. Pete was sleeping. I was watching TV. When all of a sudden I hear, "Ah!"
No! No!
Exactly. And at first I'm thinking it's something he's watching on TV. So I wait. And again I hear.
Ah!
So now I go, "Pete, are you okay?"
Ah!
And I hear, "No." Now I'm terrified. So
No!
I get up as quickly as my feeble body can and go into the back. And he's there moaning. And I'm like, "What's the matter? Are you okay? Are you okay?" "No, no." Now I'm like really scared. I'm thinking he's having a stroke or something.
Yeah, because didn't you say I was trying to talk and it was like all
Right.
gibberish
I was
or
trying
something?
I was like, "Are you dreaming? What's going on?" And you were like, and I'm thinking he's having a stroke, and I'm trying to refresh in my mind, what are the things you're supposed to ask and do? I'm trying to get you to smile and to make certain words and stuff, and you're not doing it. And I'm like, oh God, please no, please no. And then all of a sudden, you kind of became a little more lucid, and you're like, damn, I don't know what the hell that was.
Yeah.
So I knew by then you were okay, but boy, was it scary.
Now I'll tell my story as I experienced it. I'm sleeping, and it occurred in the time of the night when they say night terrors happen, and it's early in your sleep cycle.
Okay.
Nightmares and dreams occur later in the sleep cycle, because very often people will have their nightmare or their dream, and now it's time for them to get up. Mm-hmm. And so they very often will have a recollection as to what happened.
Okay.
That's a dream. That's a nightmare. But the night terror it's hard for you to get out of it.
Okay.
You can't wake yourself out of it. It's hard for people to wake you out of it. So I'm sleeping and I'm having this dream. And again, I can't tell you exactly what it was, but it was terrifying. And it was dark. And it was almost like a hulking kind of a presence that came up before me. And I remember looking directly at it, and it's like this just expanding, like hulking. And I am terrified out of my mind. It was like looking into the face of pure evil.
Wow, that's really scary.
And where did it happen? Was there a setting? For some reason, I keep thinking it was like in a corner of our basement downstairs.
Ooh, the man cave.
No, the other side.
Okay.
The storage side.
Yeah.
And it was like like by where our sump pump is.
Yeah.
It was the monster from the sump pump, you know.
The Black Lagoon.
Sump pump had nothing to do with it,
Yeah.
but it was just kind of like that part of the cellar,
Okay.
as I recall. And I just remember seeing this thing, and I remember screaming, no.
Right.
Like, no,
Yeah.
no, kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And then I'm trying to call you for help. And the more that I'm trying to voice, help, come in here, there's something, it's just like, just like that.
Right.
And-
Exactly.
And I remember making several tries of talking, and the more that I tried, the worse it got.
It was something I've never experienced before. Never.
You have dreams,
I have dreams,
but I've never seen you have I've had a few of these night terrors.
but I was never involved in them.
No.
If you had them, you might have just woken up and been like, ugh.
Yeah.
But this was quite more dramatic than what you had before. But yeah, you talk about my nightmares. I mean, truthfully, most of my dreams are nightmares or very strange. And I can't say that I've ever had a night terror.
You have really crazy dreams. Because not all of your dreams are nightmares. Some of them are just crazy, disjointed kind of things.
Yep. I would love to know or to speak to someone that interprets dreams, because mine are so weird. That's the only word I can come up with for them. And while you're dreaming them, everything seems logical, plausible, perfectly normal. And then when I wake up and I try to remember what I dreamt, I realize all these incongruities are there, like people that are dead or alive in my dream. Or I will have like people that from different aspects of my life, like maybe people that I went to college with, will suddenly be in my dream as a present day thing. Or people from one job and another job will merge, even though they have never met each other. They know nothing about each other, but the story goes into the both aspects of the relationships. And it's just, when I try to recollect it in lucid moments, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. They don't know each other. Why would they be in the room? That kind of thing. Like some dreams where the characters morph. And it's kind of like, for one, that happens very often, is I'll start off dreaming about my daughter Kimberly, and it'll turn into my sister Patty, or vice versa. And again, in my dream, it's just a natural thing. All of a sudden, it's like, okay, 1 minute it's Kimmy, next minute it's Patty. But when I come to and wake up in the real world, I'm like, that's not happening.
Yeah.
What was that
We should
all
point
about?
out, too, that Patty is deceased.
Right.
And maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I'm not going to play armchair Freud here.
Yeah.
But maybe that has something to do with it.
It could. And she and Patty were very close. So, maybe there's a connection there. But I just know that my dreams don't make sense by the light of day.
Well, you've got to tell. And they don't make sense by the moon of night either. You've got to tell the story about Mr. Jaws.
Oh gosh, this is almost embarrassing.
And we were like young.
Yeah,
right?
like newly married.
It was right about the time Jaws came out, right? Because we went to see it.
Yeah, in the 70s or something. Yeah. And I had a dream about a shark on land, mind you, that was going around on its tail fins, like upright, like a person would be. And it was killing people.
Like Kenny the Shark.
Like if you ever saw that cartoon, but I don't think that's...
But he didn't kill anyone.
He didn't kill anybody, but I don't think too many people know that cartoon. But anyway, this Jaws is going around and people are dying. And I remember going onto an elevator, and the Jaws is coming towards the door of the elevator. And in my dream, I said, "Hey, Mr. Jaws, how many people did you kill today?" And in this funny voice, he goes, 13. And with that, the elevator door closes.
And off he went.
And that was the end of the dream. But when I got up and I was telling Pete about it, he just makes fun of me all the time about Mr. Jaws. I don't know why I dreamt that.
I told Maureen, I'm going to bring up Mr. Jaws.
And I was like, maybe we don't have to do this show.
Let's talk a little bit about the differentiation between a nightmare and a night terror.
Okay.
Now, a nightmare, the timing is usually, as I said, in the last third of the sleep cycle, so closer to your awakening.
All right.
The common cause for a nightmare is considered to be stress and or a recollection of a traumatic event. Upon waking, you typically wake up on your own in a lucid state. And during the nightmare, you may groan or mumble.
Okay.
But probably no flat out,
No! Ah!
Yeah, thank God.
I love those effects. Virtually all adults have had a nightmare in their lifetime. And around 35 to 45% of adults have at least one nightmare per month.
Okay.
The peak It becomes more common with advancing age.
Oh, joyousness.
And the content is easily remembered. Very often the theme of the content is failure, helplessness, or some kind of interpersonal conflict. 75% of kids have had at least one nightmare. Peak nightmares in kids usually emerge around the age of 3 and continue up to the ages of 6 to 10. And in kids, nightmares are easily remembered. Common themes: falling, being chased, or sensing an evil presence.
Now, in a night terror, the timing is different. It's usually in the first third of the night. And it occurs before you go into REM sleep. That's that rapid eye movement sleep, usually during what they call slow wave sleep. Its common cause is disruption of brain waves during sleep. Upon waking, you'll typically be difficult to wake up, and you may be confused for several minutes, and you may even thrash, scream, or even run out of bed. Now, in adults, it's prevalent in about 1% to 2%. So lucky you that 1% or 2%, aren't you, something?
I hope it's only 1% or 2%, because I'm telling you, I don't want to go through that again.
No. And 1% to 2% have had night terrors at some point during adulthood. The peak is more common before the age of 25. The content is difficult to remember. Some adults may have a vague recollection of feeling rushed or panicked, but no more. Now, in kids, 56% of kids 13 and under have had night terrors, which is what we were talking about at the very beginning, that we associate night terrors with children. Their peak night terrors emerge at 18 months, and the prevalence decreases as they age. And for them, it's almost impossible to remember what they were dreaming about.
They say that nightmares are dreams that are tainted by stress and trauma from the outside world. A common theory suggests that nightmares are your brain's way of rehearsing your response to danger. Your nightmare may not reflect the threat exactly. Instead, it provides a simplified, symbolic representation. If you're worried about drifting apart from old friends, you might dream of a flood literally sweeping you away from your community. Nightmares commonly happen after trauma. Around half of the people seeking treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, have replicative nightmares. These recurrent dreams force you to re-experience the trauma that caused your PTSD. They tend to be deeply disturbing and may sabotage your ability to sleep.
Now, in your early childhood experiences, there's a thing called the stress acceleration hypothesis. If something bad happens to you, your brain may rush its development of your fear response in response up to that traumatic event. That experience doesn't have to involve abuse. It simply needs to be unpleasant enough to cause a strong stress response. For example, a stubborn case of diaper rash may not seem like a big deal to adults, but to an infant or toddler...
I hate when that happens.
But to an infant or toddler experiencing pain for the first time...
You know, the chafing just...
It can be traumatic in its own way, and stop it. Certain medications, if you're on certain medications, it can trigger your chance of having nightmares.
Night terrors typically happen when you are deeply asleep. This period is called slow wave sleep. Since the waves of electrical activity in the brain are larger and slower, people with frequent night terrors tend to have mismatched brain waves during this phase of sleep. When the brain waves clash, they may throw you into a half-awake state. Your body can go from 0 to 100, making the heart race, your muscles tense, but your conscious self will likely be offline and unaware of what's going on.
Wow.
So you don't remember anything.
Yeah.
And I've had a recurring dream, and it was more when we were living in our old neighborhood. Mm-hmm. The neighborhood that Maureen and I moved here from was a neighborhood that had a lot of crime. And we were crime victims numerous times over our
Oh, we were there 34 years.
34 years. And we were crime victims numerous times. Thank God nobody ever got hurt. But it was enough, I think, to create
tension
in my brain. Mm-hmm. And I would have a recurring dream that I was being attacked. In my recollection, I'm being attacked by somebody with a knife. And I remember one time actually waking up and I'm fighting in the bed and throwing my sheets and, trying to fight this thing off. But that would be a nightmare because I can tell you what it was just like that.
Yeah.
Somebody attacked me.
Right. Stress can do a lot of weird things, I guess, is what the uptake of this.
Our comment question for you down below, or if you want to send it to us email at thesonicboomers@aol.com. Our question to you is, have you as an adult ever experienced a night terror? Remember the differentiation between night terror and nightmare, but we want to know if you as an adult are among the lucky 1 or 2% to experience night terror.
Pete wants to form a club.
Yeah, the Night Terror Club. So keep watching on our YouTube channel because we're going to be posting that very first episode of our show from December 8th, 2019. That'll be up there soon. I'll probably do a brief appearance on camera to introduce it, and then the rest of it, unfortunately, is audio only. But that's okay because we're a lot better looking now than we were 4 years ago. It's so nice to have Maureen back with me.
Oh, you're so sweet.
I'm so used to doing radio over the years by myself in the studio. So I was comfortable with the podcast, but you're not being here next to me. There was something not quite right.
Aww.
So I'm so glad that she's back.
He's sweet.
And then I only have to have half the responsibility for the show. Until next time, I'm Pete Torriello.
And I'm Maureen Torriello.
Did you forget for a second?
I wasn't sure if you were going to me or you were going to say something more.
Join us. I'm going to just tie my hands behind my back. Join us for the next edition of the Sonic Boomers Podcast.